It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society, women need to shut the fuck up, blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part, and we would live in paradise. It's that simple. It's literally that simple. Anyway.
All right, guys, welcome back. So today I wanted to discuss why young men follow Nick Fuentes. All right, there's a shift happening, and it's pretty easy to see why. Okay, I feel like I'm in a weird position as a millennial to like transmit this message because I'm stuck slap in between two generations, and I don't know what else to do other than to do my best to try to communicate this, right? So we'll go through this article together, but a lot of us can already intuit, like use our intuition to see why this shift is happening, especially with how Ben Shapiro in his last like video about what was it? He talked about like if you can't afford to live there, you best just move. Just God Almighty, right? This is the state of being basically cucked in your own country, because you're always gonna get priced. You have the potential to always get priced out. Why the hell would I sign up for that? So our social institutions, let's just go ahead, right? So our social institutions radicalized an entire generation of young boys by treating them like defective girls and acting like they are ticking time bombs of oppression. So let's see here. I despise the Groyper movement. I don't know what that really is. Groyper? Groyper. I don't know what that means, bro. Led by a young personality, these far right activists. Okay, either way, I tried my best. All right, so, however, if you want to understand where Nick Fuentes gets purchased with the young men, I will tell you how it happened by telling you about my experience at orientation night when my son joined elementary school band. My 11-year-old son joined the elementary school band, and so I went to the parent orientation night, which was held at a local high school. As the night went on, it became more obvious to me why young men rage against the larger social system. The classrooms were inundated with DEI messages and trans pride flags. On the wall, there were posters, stickers, and various decorations that all invoked the various totems in diversity. Black Lives Matter messaging, decolonization messaging, LGBTQ messaging, and basically every sort of race and gender social justice messaging you can imagine was present. The advertisements for post-secondary opportunities featured social justice education prominently, including advertising a course of indigenous ways of knowing as something grade 12 students should pursue upon graduation. Many of the teachers has this is a safe space sticker on their doors, and others had variations of in this house messaging on their doors or on the walls of the classroom. The entire aesthetic which dominated the decoration of classrooms was a progressive leftist coded in this house and be kind aesthetic. Right? So this, if you're familiar with this idea at all, you know this is the HRification and feminization of everything. As soon as you walked into a classroom, there was no doubt as the political leanings of whichever teacher occupied that classroom. The only way I can describe it is to say that progressive social justice activists have colonized the school and marked their territory. A woman in a mask, who was in charge, got up and read a number of land acknowledgments before acknowledging the contribution of indigenous people to the ways of knowing. Standard leftist land acknowledgement boilerplate. Additionally, every interaction was done in the style of HR style professionalism, mixed with progressive leftist coded gentle parenting, of course. When it comes to how the teachers behave, I am going to draw on both that night and other times I have been at my son's school in order to explain it. To begin, the boys are treated almost as though they are defected girls. The feminine modes of interaction and socialization are treated as though they are the only legitimate modes of interaction and serve as the taken for granted ways to properly interact and navigate the world. Almost all the authority figures at my son's schools are women, with almost no exception. Okay, and I do see this in my own social circle too, in my own social network. I know there's a lot more women as teachers because you need to be certified and all this other crap. One day, my son found out that the school had hired a single male education assistant, and my son came home and told me in wondrous amazement that he saw a boy teacher at school. The level of wonderment and surprise he expressed was on par with what I expect if he had walked into school and seen a triceratops walking the hallways. My son often comes home from the school and expresses utter frustration at the fact that his preferred way of communicating, as well as the things that are aligned with his temperament, are treated as though they were somehow inferior. I see this all the time. As he is 11 and being assessed for autism, he lacks the correct technical language to describe this, so it is generally shows up as him getting into trouble for being insufficiently gentle and kind in response to various passive aggressive power plays and instances of bullying carries out by his more socially developed, often female peers, right? So that's the thing that I see a lot more, right? The standard is now feminine. That's the standard that in which now boys are having to attribute themselves towards, and that's a huge issue because we are not the same. To say that the parent night for school band was feminine coded would be an understatement. It would be more accurate to say that feminized modes of behavior and communication were embedded in every single interaction. It was a totally alien environment for anyone who isn't well versed in navigating the social codes of progressive leftist institutional spaces. It was like the slogan, "The future is female," was taken to be a command delivered from God Himself, turned into a education program. Now, I want you to imagine what it is like for an 11-year-old boy to be saturated in that environment day after day. He is an alien in his own school. He is treated essentially like a ticking time bomb who needs to be effectively managed rather than engaged with and taught, and he knows this is happening. It is hard to overstate the level of hostility towards boys that is floating around in the ambient culture of the school system. It isn't so much that there is an explicit form of anti male bigotry, although examples of that do exist. It is more that there is an overall attitude of distaste for anything masculine and an utter indifference toward the interests, fortunes, and inner lives of young boys. The expectations, norms, rules, and standards of behavior cater to the sensibilities of girls and women. Yes, they do. This is the entire social system that a young boy goes through from when he is 6 years old all the way until he is graduated from university. I can tell you straight up, me as well, going through that, getting my business degree. Yeah, yeah. I knowing my temperament, I was surprised about of the other how the other men would interact. It was very interesting. It's an old trope on the right to say, imagine if the roles were reversed, but that would be to miss the point. I know that many on the left would say that all of this is perfectly acceptable because of the historical injustices and the pursuit of social justice, right? That's the revenge and resentment motif from the feminine. What I want to point out to you is how absurd the world must appear through the eyes of the average 11-year-old boy. He's basically told he is a host of social advantages, white male privilege, straight privilege, etc., that he has never experienced and will never benefit from, and this justifies the system in which he is immersed in. And the worst part is, if young men point out any of this, the very people who are doing it will look them in the eye, straight faced, and deny that any of this is ever happening. Making matters worse, these men begin to figure out that the institutions have been used to advance leftist political agenda that scapegoated their group, young white men, particularly speaking. I don't know. I don't know why, but I fall into this identical category. I don't know what did it for me. I think it was my mystical experience when I had a psychedelic experience. I realized a lot of like the identity politics was just absolute BS. And when they point this out, everyone in authority calls them evil bigots. Yep, yep. And all this happens during their formative years. At least I went through it in really. I only experienced it in college. I can't imagine a young boy experiencing that, right? So like I got the tail end of it, and I just can't imagine being young and experiencing that. So, and this is me going from a Catholic school, bro. I grew up in Catholic school, middle school. Now imagine you are a young white male. You graduate from the school system and are released into the world only to find out that the feminine modes of socialization pushed on you are entirely unfit for purpose. Yeah, they don't, especially you. You're a dude. You're already de-advantaged. That that the social skills you were taught fail utterly in both the job markets young men tend towards construction, engineering, building, landscaping, etc., and have no purchase in the dating market where highly agentic, masculine, wealthy men have a huge advantage over the passive, docile, nice boy. On top of that, imagine that the great deal of job listings that you pursue make it clear that the preferences will be given to women and diverse candidates, and that the job interview itself is full of shibboleths, coded statements, and trap questions meant to elicit response that allow the hiring party to exclude anyone who isn't sufficiently versed in and aligned with the priorities of DEI woke social justice paradigm. On top of that, If you do get a job, you will be exposed to virus sensitivity trainings, DEI trainings, and intersectionality workshops in which your group, straight white male men, are repeatedly scapegoated as the source of all the world's pathologies. Laid at your feet are patriarchy, colonialism, racism, sexism, and a great number of other social evil. Just put Western man at this point. Just put Western man, for which you are taken to be complicit and have responsibility for fixing in virtue of being a white male. I just say a normal dude, because at this point, if you're a liberal man, you're like fighting against your own brethren. It's kind of a strange position to take. While all this is going on, a series of scandals, COVID, men's and women's sports, trans kids, reveal to you that the degree to which the institutions that make up the society you live in have adopted an ideology that is actively hostile to you because you are a straight white male. You have been denying your opportunity while scapegoating you for all society's problems and treating you like you are a defective girl. This is exactly that, because the standard is you should behave like a woman, right? Oh, you don't know how to regulate emotions? Oh, you can't sit down for hours on straight? She can, so there must be something wrong with you. Once you realize this, the real question is not why are some young men radicalizing. The real question is, why are there any young men at all who have not been radicalized? Yeah, and I feel for you, man. I feel for them. So like this, I can't stand by and watch this shit happen anymore. Are there bad apples out there? Yes, of course. But for the most part, the young generation men do not deserve this, bro. They're getting shellacked. None of this is to excuse any of the extremist radicals who are attempting to harness the resentment and anger of young men for their evil purposes. The point is to get you to understand why young men will attach themselves to any voice who is willing to stridently call for the obliteration of the social system, an ideology which lied to them during their formative years and is currently doing things which rob them of opportunities for advancement and success. The institution have totally blown their credibility with young men and have completely destroyed young men's trust in institutions. Young men view the current set of social institutions as ideologically corrupt and totally illegitimate, and they view the narratives that emerge from those institutions as being expressions as if nothing more than a mere story told to legitimize an ideology which seeks to actively hold them back. As such, the institutions and their narratives have absolutely no normative pull on young Gen Z men, and I know, and I can see exactly why. Okay, exactly why. They just got gaslit on every front, bro. Every front. It's insane. I can't. I'm not saying this situation is hopeless, but unless you acknowledge what I have laid out here and engage in good faith engage in good faith to attempt to understand what the school system, universities, nonprofits, HR departments, and other civic institutions have done to young men, you will never be able to gain their trust enough to lead them away from guys like Nick Fuentes, Andrew Tate, Andrew Torba, and other quote unquote pathological influences. One of the reasons that Jordan Peterson became so wildly popular in 2016 is that he spoke so loudly and clearly to the struggles that young men were being forced to go through. And he did it in a way that was healthy. I give him that. Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, the old conservative establishment. That's the one thing I love about them, is that they did it with class. They did it with sophistication, right? They were the gentlemen. They were the new gentlemen on the block. It's not enough. Personally speaking, it's still not enough, bro. Jordan Peterson encouraged young men to take responsibility, to make something of themselves, to avoid bitterness, to put their lives together, and once they had done that, make some contribution to the world. And I remember that. Okay, I'm okay with admitting openly, Jordan Peterson low key saved my life, bro. I don't mind saying that out loud, man. Okay, anyway, let's just say his word of encouragement went a long way, a really long way. Jordan Peterson encouraged young men to, or okay, not only did he tell them to make something of themselves, but he told them that they could make something of themselves. He told them that they were not evil, racist oppressors who needed to step aside. They were men who could and should make themselves into people who could be trusted to make contributions to the world and to take up places of authority, of responsibility, and that this was a good thing to do. In essence, Jordan Peterson became the large mentor figure for young men on the political right and in the political center. Disenfranchised men, like I was. Over the last few years, Dr. Peterson has fallen ill, and this has left the space of a large father figure and mentor for young men wide open. and a number of influencers are trying to take advantage of this fact and exploit the void that was left by Dr. Peterson's absence. Influencers with large following on social media can gain currency amongst teenage boys quite quickly. And unlike college-aged men, Jordan Peterson's initial audience, high school boys, are far more likely to gravitate towards crass humor than the university lectures Jordan Peterson became famous for. For this reason, Nick Fuentes can hook teenage boys with crass humor and taboo breaking long before they ever develop maturity, patience, and intellectual ability to digest lectures from someone like Jordan Peterson. I think there's a time and place for everything. Before I finish this up, there's a time and place for everything, right? Jordan Peterson was the man for the job at that time, and there were the likes of him, right? So for me, it would be Jordan Peterson, and then you had like Michael Sugru, and for those lucky few who got to see these, like Michael Sugru, and what's his other Rick Roderick, right? And then before that was like Joseph Campbell, that those kind of guys, right? Jordan Peterson was that kind of guy for that kind of time. Okay, I still don't think that it's intellectual capacity. It's style now. It's style. The world is pressing on men in a way that's never been done before. The upshot of all this is that in order to prevent young men from falling down the Nick Fuentes rabbit hole, we need to make an honest play for teenage boys, and we need to do it in a way that appeals to them on their own teams, on their own terms. Because Nick Fuentes is already doing that. And if we don't start competing for that audience, Fuentes' strength is only going to grow. Now, to be honest, he seems to be a little against Fuentes, right? Like he doesn't think that he's a good idea. Now, if you look at this, like the way that he presents it here, this is not Andrew Tate's fault, bro. This is not fucking Nick Fuentes' fault. Like the shift in the landscape, like that the guys on the left, I mean on the right, the establishment right, that I would consider partly as if the torch was carried by Charlie Kirk, right? He kind of held that like fine line to me. What they don't really see is the absolute uh, wasteland that is feminine virtue in this day and age. For all the crap you want to give guys, right? For all the crap you want to give them for not performing and for not stepping up and for not taking responsibility and all that crap and for not getting their own lives together. What do you expect, bro? What do you expect a guy to do when he can't find someone to be with? Throughout his 20s, throughout his 30s, there's no wifey material. Throughout his 40s, it's insane to think about it. But anyway, this is a really good article. It really gives you something to think about. But just to go about the next bit about this, the reason why I came about this is because I remember reading the Neoconservative Persuasion after Douglas Murray suggested it. And a neocon is basically a liberal who got mugged by reality. Right? So one of my favorite quotes is like, you literally became conservative over the past 2 decades by standing still. You're automatically conservative. Right? So today, just being normal gets you smeared as right wing. Meat, exercise, American flags, and not wanting chemicals in your food are all billed as right wing. I'm embracing the label with pride. At this point, right? Like, so this is part and parcel. I've never read this one before, so we're gonna go in together and see what this says. It's by Jennifer Say. But it's like you told me I was such a way for so fucking long. I just started believing it. All right, cool. I'm evil, and whatever. Let's just read this shit. Anyone normal in this day and age gets billed as right wing. It's said as a smear. But it's so ridiculous, no one should fear it. Basically, everyone who isn't far left extremist is right wing. If you don't adhere and if you enthusiastically tout every tenet of the far left, you're right wing. Yeah, it's insane. Diverge on just one thing, and you're MAGA. You're a fascist. You're not just conservative. You're a right wing extremist. Be proud. Wear it as a badge of honor. I wanted nothing to do with the Democrats. They were the party that locked us all inside. They told us we couldn't send our kids to school, go to work, run our business, and celebrate the holidays with friends and family. But I didn't want to register as Republican either. Yeah. I didn't want to be part of any group, and I've never been a joiner, and I hate it, and I still do what politics had become as some sort of team sport, right? fear one iota from your party's platform, and get thrashed and smeared and dragged across the internet. So I registered as nothing. I sent the signal that I was gettable by either side if they showed humanity at all. But when Charlie Kirk was murdered a month ago, I re-registered again as a Republican. I wanted to stand up and be counted as a defector and as an ungettable voter for the Democrats. I was disgusted by their platforms and policies for years. I hadn't voted for a Democrat in years. But my reluctance to be held to any sort of platform or list of rules held me back from registering as Republican. And I didn't want the label. I didn't want any label at all. But it's become so absurd what you get labeled as a Republican that I had just had to sign up. Because here's what you get labeled as a right winger today: eating meat, knowing that sex is binary, being happy that Israeli hostages were released, saying that girls and women deserve safety, privacy, and fair competition, lifting weights and working out, not wanting chemicals in your food, wanting healthy school lunches that include actual vegetables, believing the parent-child relationship is the most important one in a child's life, thinking that having children is a net positive for the world, society, and also the individual. As a woman, if you prioritize having kids over a career, liking sports and competition, thinking that these should be based on merit, who is the best, not inclusion, not wanting a gazillion useless flu and COVID shots, thinking fathers and male role models contribute to raising emotionally healthy children, not thinking masculinity is toxic, going to church or synagogue, believing that your abortion is grotesque even if you're pro-choice, being in a traditional marriage rather than an open relationship, a polycule, or being a man who thinks he's a woman marrying a woman who thinks she's a man, finding beautiful women at healthy weights to be more attractive than morbidly obese women, finding anyone at a healthy weight attractive, not wanting to date or be in a relationship with a person who thinks that they are the opposite sex. Shocking. Shunning the healthy at any size narrative, believing in free speech, not wanting pornographic books in school, shielding your children from sexual content in cartoons, believing in merit, wanting to give exceptional children the opportunity to thrive in gifted and talented programs in public school, not wanting to take medicine that you don't need, wanting to live in a safe community, funding the police, prioritizing justice for victims of crimes rather than mercy for career animals, opting out of mental health survey in school for your kid, hanging an American flag, right? So I did. I registered as a Republican. I declared myself right wing. I don't care about the name calling. I haven't for some time. I stopped caring about it, or I would have crumbled into a ball and never gotten up again. I found myself in a pretty good company. Disaffected lefties around here. Lifelong conservatives are pretty nice people. We don't agree on everything, and so what? And I just want to, like, this is pretty much it. We are racist, sexist, homophobic, though the left persists in calling us this to try to get others to stand down. I would even say misogynist, right? Because I just think that most women pretty much operate a certain way. This was written by women, but I usually say like 10% of women can think in this direction. Most women cannot. This is the big 10th party. Now we are the normies. We reject the stupid insults that they just don't seem to have realized it yet. Anyway, this is what I've realized, right? The right has so much nuance and disagreement where the Democrats really don't. You know what I mean? And the right seems to be on just a couple of topics, really. It's really just hot on Israel. Personally, I was initially for Israel when Biden had like tied their hands, right? All I thought was going to happen was that Trump would untie their hands and just let them do what they need to do. That's what I initially thought was going to happen. Okay. What wasn't supposed to happen, or I didn't imagine happening, was that we would like literally do everything as Americans, right? In the government ability to back them up and help them do whatever. I didn't know they would go that far. Personally, I didn't realize that was the case. So, for what it's worth, it doesn't matter. Anyway, if you think about the bigger landscape of things, right? The Myron Gaines, the Andrew Tates, and all this, right? The old guys have lost this battle, bro. Okay, young men look around and they see these fucking women, the way they behave, and this is the easiest, most relatable subject that you can get with guys. That most of the guys in that the classy gentleman version of conservatives, right? The Ben Shapiro's, Douglas Murray, Jordan Peterson's. I'm missing a bunch. Was it Matt and the other Andrew Clavin? I think is his name. I can't remember all of them, but that's pretty much gone, bro. That's pretty much gone. Okay. The reason why Nick Fuentes is gaining traction is because, well, he don't give a fuck. He doesn't care. And honestly, I'm for it. I'm for it. Okay, it's no longer about being a gentleman. It's no longer about who's actually right. It's about style. And if you're not gonna be on board with it, I think that's on you. It's on pretty much all of us. Okay, this is not the hero that we wanted, but this is the hero that we deserve, and that's unfortunately this is unfortunately the case, right? For us in the right wing establishment, we let shit get too out of control for young men. We didn't call out the feminine paradigm, that the feminazi paradigm for what it is on the left, and the covert feminazi, the covert feminism basically in the right, the tradcon BS. We didn't call it out, and we lost young men to these kind of guys. Nice going. But again, just like Trump was basically the middle finger to the establishment, to the left, congratulations, this is what we got for ourselves here on the right. I'm here for it, man. Honestly, this will be so entertaining. I would love to see a Ben Shapiro versus Nick Fuentes debate. I would love to see that, bro. I would love to see that. Oh God. I'm not all that I'm not all that religious, but this is one of those things. I actually, I'll pray to God for this one. Oh yeah, I got the rest of my life covered. God, if you can make something like that happen, that'd be fantastic. Anyway, let me know what you think. Deuces.